in order for you to create polarity, it's important for two people to get in touch or in touch with their core essence. And what I mean by this is that everyone has a core essence, whether it be more masculine or whether it be more feminine.
Matt, it's good to have you on the show. I'd love to know, just real quickly, kick it off with like what is something recently that you've learned that is sort of like blowing your mind or have really given you like a bit of a moment?
Love that. Going straight in. Well,
Straight
thanks for
in.
having me on, brother. Something that I've learned recently. Hmm. Something that I am in the practice of and also just relearning is just constantly leaning into any part of me that doesn't want to share the truth, or like if I will share the truth, but it's like a half truth, especially in my relationship, and like leaning into things that are just super uncomfortable, like things that I'm going through, because part of my protection mechanism growing up has been like doing everything myself, being the strong one, being the man and just being the rock. And it's served me in many ways. And also it's been, hasn't served me in many ways. And part of that has been creating like disconnection with people not being able to really see like what's going on with me. So for me, it's like looking at how can I lean into saying to someone, whether it be with Kelly or my partner Kelly, or whether it be with someone like a friend, just saying, hey, I would love some support. Here's what's actually going on for me. I'm struggling with this, or I really don't know what to do about this thing, rather than just like pretending that everything is okay. So that's something that I'm learning, relearning, and practicing.
Have you got any specific examples?
Yeah. So something that I have been practicing, something that I've been struggling with, is trying to do everything myself in my business. And a lot of the time, I think that I can do everything myself, and I do that. And then it gets to the point where I feel so burnt out and I feel like really stressed and I feel overwhelmed. And then after that, I just want to like be in my own little bubble and just uh, zone out by playing a video game or watching Netflix and just being in my room and isolating myself. And that's been a pattern for a while now. So just like leaning into that, getting support and getting emotional support by certain friends that I really love and trust as well. So that's one example.
Okay, I got a really good question for this. Is like, how do you ask for it?
Yeah. I how do I ask for it? I literally just reach out. Like the other day I reached out to a friend and I just said, "Hey, I'm really struggling with something. Can I get your advice on this? Or can I get your perspective on this?" So it's just straight up just asking, like, what do you think about me doing this? And then will send him a little bit of a voice message, just providing some context. And then yeah, that's how I ask for it.
Nice. I really like
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
And I like one thing that I really like respect about you is how much attention you put to detail in those things, and also understanding like how you honor your truth and like what's right there, and then specifically speaking to that, which I think is amazing. Like, how did you develop that skill? Did that always come to like naturally to you? Did you have to work on that? Like, how did you like get that?
In what can you give, what do you mean by that? Like just asking for
Yeah, so
specifics?
I should say of like the awareness of what's true and not true for you, and then
Ah, yes.
like speaking to that, because I find like I was like speaking to like men here, for example, because I know like a lot of men, one, they find it really hard to celebrate themselves, and they find it like,
Yes.
in my experience, hard to ask for what they specifically want, because they feel like, in my reality of what I see, is like they're undeserving of it, or their self-worth down, and they
Yeah.
notice it and they see it and they're like, oh,
Mm.
it's there, but then they don't land on it and then can't actually ask or speak from it. So I'm sort of speaking from them because I know you do it really well and I respect that. So
Thank you. One thing that's been one of our core teachings that we love to break down, me and my partner, is we like to share that underneath every complaint, there is the desire, right? And you can also reword this to certain emotions. Underneath every single emotion, there is the desire there as well. So if I'm feeling down, one of the things that I get to ask myself is, what is needed here? And normally it's going to be some form of connection, some form of reassurance. And I can give that to myself. And what I was mentioning is like, I have been so practiced at giving that to myself. Now it's about how can I lean on community or my partner or a friend or a specific friend to get that very thing that I'm looking for. So I'm feeling down is like, what is needed here? I just want to connect. I just want someone to speak to. And I've been trying to get that connection from video games or like scrolling on Instagram or just zoning out and watching Netflix. So it's just finding a different vehicle to get that form of connection.
Mm. So that's really interesting because it's sort of like every other complaint is like, I'm just thinking of this of like where you would push something to go play video games or where you're like, oh, I just want to sit on the couch and watch nothing and scroll and whatever is like, oh, I actually just want some love right now.
Yes, yes. Love, connection, or maybe it is for some time to just be alone. That could also be a desire there, you know?
Do you think people get in a position where of being unknown to like ask these things that it plays a detriment to actually creating connection in their relationship and people like and like men sort of specifically find it difficult to admit that they actually do want connection and love?
Absolutely. Yeah, a lot of men from what I've worked with, and I'm sure you've worked with as well, have definitely had that struggle, you know, like wanting to be the lone wolf, you know, not wanting to get outside support or not believing that they need that. And at the same time, every human has different human needs, and one of those needs is love and connection. So it's absolutely a theme that I see among men. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, oh, big time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everywhere. I literally have people ask
Yes.
like, why can't I take a compliment? And like, why am I actually deserving of love and all the cuddles and the
Yes.
snuggles and all the rest of it and just like, actually feeling it? Because I always feel like
Yeah.
it seems to me like that they have to work really hard or push the boundaries or sacrifice themselves, which will then end up letting them have that. But because they've pushed themselves so far, they never quite get to receive.
Yes.
They're
It's
like,
like
no.
love on it's love when there's accomplishment or love when there's a certain level of when there's a milestone reached rather than love when it's not met or love just unconditionally. And that's one of the things that I like to share with my clients as well is that normally there was a childhood experience, whether with one or both caregivers, where that happens. Like love was inconsistent. So when you reach a certain milestone, when you do good in the grades, when you do good at a certain athletic event, then you get so much love. But when you don't do that, then love isn't given or love isn't present or love isn't as present. So now from a childhood's perspective, then there's like this, okay, so my way of getting love is to then do that in business or for me to do that in a sport or for them to me do that in a certain career that I'm in. And then if I don't get to that thing, then there's a assumption that I'm not worthy of receiving the love that I really want and crave unless I get there. And that can create some unhealthy patterns and also just a lot of loneliness as well.
Do you think that happens with like money too?
Absolutely. Yes, for sure. Yes, especially among men because there is a innate part of us that wants to provide for sure. And at the same time, there is this expectation that if you don't have the ability yet to be able to provide through financial means, then you're not going to get the love that you want or desire, you know?
Crazy, right? I think speaking on that, if any guys are listening right now, they'd be like, holy shit.
Yes. Well, I remember a time, right? There was a time where I had an ex-partner of mine and this I had a lot of money trauma that I got to work through. And one of those ones was me lying to an ex-partner because I said to her that I want to like take her out for her birthday, and I had like this I had this idea where we're going to go out on a boat and look at all of the dolphins, and it was about $400 in total, maybe a little bit more than that. And I said to her that that's what we're going to do, but then I lied to her and I said, "Hey, we can't actually go on this because they canceled it because of something to do with like their boat." And I lied to her because the truth was I just didn't have enough money to actually pay for the thing. And as a man, I felt so worthless just not having the money to be able to do that. Right. And that was one of the things that I had to work through, is like, can I still be loved regardless if I am unable to provide financially? And there was a lot of came here, and when I came here to Bali, just working through so much um, feelings of unworthiness around that specifically. So I think it's common around men.
What was that process of you sort of going through to figure out the worthiness, and like where there was evidence of you being unworthy, and then creating evidence
Mm,
for yourself and be like, yeah, bitch, I'm
yeah.
so worthy. Like, I'd love to hear
Yeah.
about that.
Well, I actually recorded it. It's on my YouTube channel. If anyone types in Matt Karma, changing my relationship with money, I actually did breath work, right? I know that you've
Yeah.
done the breath work experience, and working through breath work, it just brought up so many suppressed and repressed memories that I totally forgot about. And there was a memory that came up during the breath work that I remember. There was a time where I was super young, maybe 10 to 11 years old, and we were going to buy the PlayStation 1. And we didn't have a lot of money growing up. So we would go to like this store where it's like a secondhand store, and then people just put in the PlayStation and they get money in return. Um, and then we went to this store, and then my mom gave me a certain amount of money to hold on to when we went to the store. And we walked in, found the PlayStation, and she's like, "Okay, pay the man." And I was like looking into my pockets, and I was like, I don't know where the money is. And she's like, what? I said, I don't know where the money is, mom. She's like, what do you mean you don't know where the money is? And then we went outside, and there was money just everywhere. All the money that she gave me was just everywhere. And I was in trouble. I felt so just sad. And then in that moment, she looked at me and she said, you lose everything. Right. And in that moment, when high emotion is linked with a certain amount of information or a certain piece of information, then it becomes stored in the subconscious or stored in the body. So for me, money, I lose everything. Money, I lose everything. Money, I lose everything. So the pattern was, no matter how much money I would get, I would always find a way to just lose it and get rid of it. Right. And that memory came up during breath work, and I just totally forgot about it. And I was like, holy shit. And I was just like letting my little child just cry and cry and cry and cry. And that memory came up with my ex-partner, and just so much stuff came up about money. And I just allowed myself to just let it go. So that's what happens.
That's cool as hell, bro.
Yes.
That is so cool. Especially in
Yes.
there, like noticing those words. It's like, oh, mum just cast a spell on me and it wasn't a good one. Damn it.
Yes. Yes.
Like,
Absolutely.
oh man, that's crazy.
Mm.
One thing I want to talk about with you, just like popped into my head, was also like, I know like you work with a lot of women and help them have like crazy successful relationships. And I don't know about you, but this has been on the front. I'd love to hear your opinion on this, because it's just been on top of conversation recently
Yeah.
for what I've been talking about. And it's like, sorry for the guys here, but women who are crushing it or
Mm.
like wanting all these things, and they're like, I feel like my partner can't come with me.
Mm.
I've
Mm-hmm.
seen this as a trend recently, and I'd just like to hear your thoughts on
Yeah. So I feel like my partner come with me in what way do you normally hear it? Like financially or business wise or career wise? Like what do you
I
normally
would
see with
say
that?
there's two of them. One of them is like, it's just my audience specifically, is like high performance, like women entrepreneurs, but also there's a part where they're growing personally, like they're doing a lot of personal development
Ah,
or
yes.
work. And they're
Yeah.
like, I'm wanting to have these difficult conversations, and I want to have these things, and I want to like move forward and blah, 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 blah. And then they feel that they're like, oh, I
Mm.
can't because I'm here with my partner, and then I want to connect with them like this and talk to them. And
Yes.
they're like, oh, I'm not getting anything back.
Yes. Beautiful. So if that happens, there's a few different perspectives on this. There's the first perspective, which is being able to call him forward, not out, but call him forward to see that you want to grow with him, but saying it in a way where he can respond in with love rather than him feeling like he's less than you, right? Because it can be very easy. One of the biggest reasons why a lot of relationships don't end up working is because of contempt. Contempt
Well, wait,
meaning,
what do you mean by that? Sorry, I was just jumping
so
in. I got like raws. Like,
that's
oh, I
okay.
got
You know what? So
excited.
contempt, think of contempt as you thinking, someone thinking that they're better than another person, right? So it could be easily worded as like, I'm doing all this work and you're not doing all this work, well, that's not going to call a man forward to want to grow with you, right? It's going to it could also create the opposite effect, where he's like, fuck you, I'm going to stay where I am out of this rebellion, right? So one
Yes.
so one of the things that someone could do is call him forward. And one of the ways that you could do that is find out what he's interested in and give him a book, or give him share videos with us from a speaker that he might love based on his personality, right? And also, so that's the first version. Call him forward to grow with you. And the second thing is getting into the reality that there are certain times where a relationship isn't forever, it's just for now or for a certain season of someone's stage of life. And there's been many moments or many relationships in my past where stuff like that did happen, where we did grow apart. And doesn't mean that I'm better or she's worse, or she's better and I'm worse. It's just like, okay, we are going in different directions and this isn't working. And we get to have a conversation about this. So yeah, it is a reality. And also it can also you can also have someone grow with you rather than grow apart. So that's what you want to think about. How can I have this person grow with me rather than us grow apart?
Crazy, right?
Yes.
Crazy. Because I find that one of the things that you said was so true when it was like, people would say something and then the partner would resist.
Yes.
Like the women would say something and then the men would be like, no, well, I'm just staying here. And I found like
Yes.
that actually hasn't been true. Like
Mhm.
they've said that out of resistance in terms of some sort of communication or something's happened. And then
Yeah.
they've changed and they've like keep progressing, or they've changed some sort of communication or figured some things out and done something like for their partners. And in a way, the next minute they've just unlocked. The guy's like, I'm going with like so quick, and
Yes.
changes things around. So I think that's crazy. I think that whole calling forward is huge. Is there any other ways that you can think of that have worked that you've?
The third way is just getting into a stage of acceptance with your partner, and rather than just trying to mold them into something that you think that they should be, then loving them for where they're at. And that doesn't mean tolerating the relationship and being like, and not choosing yourself and being like, hey, what is it that I actually want? And at the same time, sometimes just being like, hey, my partner's going through their stuff right now, and I'm going to go on my journey. And one of the best ways to invite him into where you want him to be isn't by telling him anything, but by you being the example of what's possible, right? So we can invite someone to grow with us through our words, or we can invite someone to grow with us through our way of being. And a lot of the time, it doesn't happen by us saying, hey, I want you to be a certain way. There's been so many moments where I've seen people where I'm like, there is something about this person's way of being that I just want to shift. There's something that's calling me forward to be someone different because of their way of being, their demeanor, their level of embodiment. And I think that that is one of the, it's pulling someone forward rather than like pushing them forward. And you pull them through magnetizing by who it is that you are. So that's another way.
That's so cool. Have you got like any sort of specific examples? I'm not sure if anyone that you've worked with where you've seen that work.
Yeah, absolutely. So, for example, one of the areas that we work on with couples is polarity. So, polarity, think of polarity as uh, two opposites coming together. And one of the distinctions that we like to make is that, or I like to make, is I like to say that the when we're talking about polarity, we're speaking about masculine and feminine energy. So a lot of the time, it might be with a woman who wants their partner to be more masculine, right? And what I normally say, and just to provide some context here, the reason why that is important, polarity is important, is because polarity is passion. Polarity is aliveness. Polarity is that just wanting to take someone or wanting to be taken by someone. It's the masculine and feminine coming together. And the more opposed the masculine and feminine in a relationship, the more passion there is going to be in the relationship. And most relationships don't end because there is a lack of love. They end because there is a lack of polarity, forward slash passion. So the reason why I'm breaking that down is because when I'm speaking with a lot of women, for example, they're like, I want my man to be more masculine. And one of the things that I say to them is I say, okay, the energy that you want from your partner, from your man, what is the energy within you that you get to bring forward that would evoke the masculine within him to come forward, right? Because saying to a man, be more masculine, or even a man saying to a woman, be more feminine, that is absolutely not going to work. However, if I want my partner to be more feminine, for example, what do I get to bring forth first in order for her to drop in and surrender and allow herself to be in her feminine, right? I don't even have to say anything. And I'm sure for a lot of men who are listening, if they've ever been with a very feminine woman, whether it be a partner or just being around her, there is something within you that comes forward, right? So that's one example.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
love that. There was so much there, like specifically to learn. So the big
Mhm.
question is like, for me is like, well, how do you create passion and polarity?
How do you create it? Great question. So one of the easiest ways there's sexual intimacy and then there's intimacy outside of the bedroom. So first off, it's about in order for you to create polarity, it's important for two people to get in touch or re in touch with their core essence. And what I mean by this is that everyone has a core essence, whether it be more masculine or whether it be more feminine. And then throughout time, whether it be stress, a stage of a relationship, a stage of grief that's happening, trauma, conditioning, there's all of these different things that can happen that has us get out of touch with that. And we can create what is called a masculine or feminine mask. So in the past, for example, my core essence is very masculine. However, things that I saw, things that I heard, and things that I experienced growing up had me operate throughout the world as being very feminine, right? But that isn't my core essence. So part of my journey about creating that in this relationship and also in past relationships was me getting in touch with my masculine self, specifically the parts of me that I suppressed, denied, judged, and a lot of that was my primal masculine, my dark masculine, the masculine that wasn't afraid of speaking up and standing up for myself, or the part of my masculine that wasn't afraid of being the wild man, or the part of my masculine that wasn't afraid of taking my woman, the part of my masculine wasn't afraid of claiming my woman and speaking my truth. So it's about looking at what part of the masculine or feminine, specifically men who are listening, what part of your masculine have you shut off because you learned that it wasn't safe? Or maybe you saw someone being really angry. So then you started to deny, judge, or suppress the anger within yourself. And now that's showing up in a relationship. Maybe you feel afraid of like taking her because that part of your wild man has been so shut off. Right. So it's just about
Oh,
looking for all of that. And then how you create that is just by getting in touch with your core essence. And then as a byproduct, the passion will be created.
man, I can almost speak to like every single man in my community specifically
Yes.
in regards to having wild man shut off.
Yes. That's a
Like,
huge one.
yeah, as we were talking about before this call, like tall poppy syndrome and obviously like people pleasing in Australia with guys
Yes.
who are like
Yes.
just so scared to be be wild, and the lack of better
Mm-hmm.
word is like passion with a bit of aggression in there as well.
Yes.
I'd love to
And
hear
it
you. Sorry.
I was just gonna say it does come out though for men. Like a lot of the time, like if we suppress, deny, or judge certain parts of our wild man, for example, speaking about this archetype, it will come out, but men will normally give themselves permission to let it out during sports or during drinking with like just drinking or taking drugs. Then they're part of their shadow self. The wild man does come out, but it's coming out in a way that isn't integrated. It's an unhealthy wild man rather than the healthy wild man that gets to be selected and chosen to be brought out during the bedroom or when protecting your partner from someone or something. So if it's not integrated and not loved on and not accepted, then it will come out, but it will come out in unhealthy ways.
Oh man, okay, I got two questions. So
Go.
remember this.
Yes.
So one of this is like, from a man's perspective, how do we get like how do we do that, especially like for ourselves, for our partner, to protect our partner from ourselves, all those things? How do we allow that to come out? Then the second
Mm,
question I have to speak on is like for women, how can they allow their men to let their wild men out? Because I know at the same time, like speaking from example on this, when you do let aggression out, when you do let wild men out, I don't know if it's Australia thing, but I find that people aren't used to it. So
yes.
specifically for women, it's like, oh God, that's real scary. for a while
Yeah.
there. So they're like, ah, that's hard. But then I've noticed in my own relationship and other areas when I've let it out in a healthy way, it's like it's been the biggest turn on
Yes.
in there. So
Exactly.
yes. So they're the two
Yes.
questions that I want to ask because, oh my God,
Uh-huh.
I'm so passionate about this.
Yeah. So I'll speak from the woman's perspective, and then I'll come back to the man. The way that a woman can be able to allow that to come out even more with a man is by praise and acknowledgement anytime that you see the parts of the man that you want even more of, right? Because a lot of the reason, right, the reason why a lot of men don't allow that out, especially when they're with a partner, like a lot of men listening, they might allow the wild man to come out. If they're in a relationship, it may have come out on one night during a one night stand, or it may come out when they have an idea that they're probably not going to see this person ever again. And the reason why is because there's a level of safety that I can allow this part of me to come out, and I'm never going to see this person anyway. So if they judge me, all good. But during an intimate relationship, there might be there's a level of unsafety that for that to come out, because what if they judge me, or what if they don't like it? And a lot of them are just like judging themselves that way. But a woman can create safety and a container for a man to allow that to come out. But anytime that you notice that, if it's after sex, you'd be like, babe, when you took me and you just were just like that you just had this part of you that just came out. I got so turned on by that, and I want even more of it. Now, if a man hears that, he's like, done, even more.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
straight away.
welcomed. That part of me is welcomed. Fuck yes. So, and then he does it again. More love and more love and more love. Like, babe, when you did that thing, like be specific as well with your acknowledgement. Like when you did this and when you said this and you said it in this way, or you just grabbed me and you flipped me over, rather than like, hey, like, can you get on your knees? Like little things like that. If a man hears that, he will then he would feel safer for that part of his wild man to come out. So that's what I would say for the women, right? Does that one make sense?
Yeah, this is so good. This is so valuable, man. So
Yes, yeah,
valuable. Wow.
yes. Now, for a man, this is where it becomes nuanced, because it can depend on so many different things. Like if a man has gone through certain levels of, let's say, abuse, so he shut that part of him off, because anytime that he would try to let it out and stand up for himself, it was just like diminished with physical pain, then that's going to require a little bit more, a lot more trauma work. So for him to allow that part of him to come out in a way that feels safe. So there's deeper levels of trauma work that may be required for certain men. And at the same time, one of the things that men can be in the practice of is during certain things like working out, or during certain things like working, like select an energy that you feel like you've shut off, and just be in the practice of bringing that forth to whatever thing that you're doing. So if you're doing a martial art, or you're hitting the boxing bag, or you're lifting weights, like how could you evoke that very energy towards lifting that barbell, or hitting that boxing bag, or going for that run, or doing that sprint, or whatever it might be. So just like training, getting in the practice, like it's getting those reps in the gym, but getting in the reps of the energetic gym of allowing the wild man to come out. You can do a dance in that way, put on some music, move your body in a way that a wild man would, right? So that's like embodiment work right there.
Yeah, I'm having some clicks there of what I've been doing recently. Because as you're saying that, I was like, I've been doing this recently. And like one thing for me is obviously he's doing one-on-one coaching calls with people. Is getting really aggressive on the coaching
Mm,
calls and passionate out of care. And we're just
mm-hmm.
both screaming on the call, like at certain things, or like letting stuff go, and just like getting really energetic, and like, who gives a fuck who's home? Like we're going
Yes.
crazy here. And it's been really intense. I remember after like one of the calls that I had, remember, because there was like just a lot of anger that come up, and it was expressed both ways. I was like, after it finished, I was like, oh, I am activated. Like I am still so angry from here, and it feels
Yes.
good. So like, listen to Slipknot, put it into some hardcore headphones,
There we
and
go.
for like an hour, I was just like, I walked up down the street, got home, and was just like, letting it out,
Yes.
and it was
Yes.
oh, it was so powerful, man, so
And that's another
powerful.
thing that men can do, like getting community, like the set the standard community, or other communities around you, whether it be online or in person. But doing something with other men can be so helpful as well. Doing it yourself can work, and it can work even faster. It can work even more effectively when you're around other men and being seen in that as well, or having spaces where you can just allow that to come out. So I love that you do that with your men as well.
Yeah, it gives you permission. Oh, this is
Yes.
this is okay.
Yes.
I'm allowed to
Yes,
be this
absolutely.
wild, man. Like I'm allowed to do
Uh-huh.
this. Like, yeah. Even though your
Exactly.
mom, your dad, and everyone told you like, don't be too crazy. Like,
Yes.
fuck that.
Yes. Yes. Uh-huh.
Oh
Yes.
man, I love that. So what is something recently that has been coming up in regards to your coaching with women that you've seen that's like a real common trend? I know like 2023 that's come up that you've been like, this is a common problem that is happening for a lot of people that I have been working with. And I'd love to
Yeah.
know what that is, and then also how you sort of integrate that into your own relationship if it shows up there too.
Mm. I would say the biggest thing that I see, especially in this year, but with my years of doing coaching, especially in this area, is either people not being clear about what it is that they want in a relationship, or knowing what they want, but then not speaking up about what it is that they want because they're afraid of quote unquote rejection, which is just someone saying no, or um, them saying it and it's being judged or criticized or met with a lack of compassion, right? So, one of the things that I love to do is get people to get clear about what it is that they want and then practice speaking it, whether it be in a group or whether it be with me if I'm working with someone one on one. And then for me to just quote unquote reject them by saying no and then getting them to repattern their nervous system by being able to be totally okay with receiving that. Because the second that someone is totally immune to receiving a no, then that's true freedom. Because now they can say what it is that they want, but it's from a place of a lack of attachment, right? A lot of people are speaking about what they want, but they're doing it from need rather than a lack of need, right? So,
That's Then you like
yes.
run through a situation, a scenario, and you'd be like, no.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Have them be
Yes.
like, oh God, I'm so let down. And then like, yeah.
Yes, and it happens for because there's people who I work with who are single, and there's people who I work with in a relationship. And in the relationship area, it could a lot of the time it comes up in the area of intimacy, wanting to initiate sex, but then afraid of getting a no. So it's also being helping couples, especially like being able to practice that and practice. For example, Kelly and I, we do relationship coaching, and one of the things that we did with a group of couples that we worked with recently, not recently, a few months ago, is get them to say a request to their partner that one that is not even that stretchy. It could like one that's not even that big of a fear. So it could be like, hey, I really want you to take the trash out, or I really want you to wash the dishes, or I really want you to give me a shoulder massage, right? Certain people aren't going to have a big effect on them for them to say that. But then we got them to say one that's like outside of their comfort zone. So it could be, babe, I want you to stop what you're doing while I'm playing the video game and for you to give me a blowjob. Just something that would have them be like, I can't ask that. Now, the other person can either say yes, no, or a counter offer. I can't right now. I would love hell yes to that desire, and I'd love to do it in 30 minutes. So, them just practicing either saying yes, saying no, having a counter offer, or and also getting people to say things that are a bit of a stretch, for them.
Oh, have you got any
Yeah,
like examples of ones that you were like, that was really good?
that was one of them. Right?
That was one of the, yeah.
Yes,
I was with the
yes,
blowjob one here, and they've
yeah,
gone, oh God, that's crazy.
yes, yeah.
I really like that. There's
Uh-huh.
one thing I remember I was like actually start of this year that sort of come up for myself and Chloe was also,
Mm.
I think it's just like a normal problem that a lot of couple has is like traveling, but without your partner. I know like
Yes.
you and Kelly do it. And I
Hmm.
know like from experience of sometimes if they want to go on holiday or do this thing, or they're going out doing something on their own, or you want to go do something on your own, you have this travel and you're like, oh, I completely trust me. That's fine. Like, then the other partner's like, well, I'm worried and I'm stressed and we've got this time like away and there's all these different things that come up
Mm.
consistently. It's like how do you navigate that and manage it, especially when well I've seen men do, and I've been guilty of this in the past beforehand when like a partner has gone, and then I've just created all these scenarios and fantasies of just bullshit
Yeah.
of them like meeting someone else or talking to someone else and all of these scenarios that just
Yes.
played up in my head. And I know people do this, and it's just like
Hmm.
so frustrating because then you accidentally say little things like, I believe like, oh, well, like, did you talk to anyone today? You're like, oh, that was
Yes.
a dig. That was a dig. Even something so small as that.
Uh-huh.
So I just love to know how like you and Kelly navigate that. and what you
Yeah.
have found has struggled and what you have found has like worked?
Beautiful question, man. And we do a lot of, because, I'm from Australia, she's from the US. So we've been apart so many times, constantly, just when she goes to the US or I go to Australia. So the way that we've navigated through this is coming back to the very first thing that I mentioned at the start of this podcast, which is just um, part of not lying isn't just when someone asks you a question and then you saying the truth. It's also when someone doesn't ask a question and speaking into the things that is going on up here, right? So if there is an insecurity, and I'll share a personal example. So the very first time that Kelly went to the US, we had a conversation about all of our insecurities. And one of the things that I said was very similar. I have an insecurity that you're going to go to LA and there's going to be a man that you meet, and that because in past relationships I've been cheated on, so like I have a fear that that's going to happen. And she's like, "Oh my god, I have the same fear as well. Like when I'm in the LA, then I have a fear that you're going to meet some woman here, and then you're going to just be in a long-term relationship with her." I was like, "Oh, okay, we have the same fear. That's beautiful. It's beautiful that we can come together and have deeper levels of intimacy by sharing the thing that we don't want to say." So that's one thing. Just being able to create a space where when traveling or being apart, you can speak into, is there anything that is coming up around that? And then out of whatever it is that is coming up, what is the need or desire on the other side of that? Okay. So what would have us feel both very safe is, what if every night we have a short little call, 30 minutes. We just talk at the end of the day, have a 30-minute call, and we just check in. We just speak about like how our day's been, and do something like that. So, and we also have a relationship check-in as well. So that's, oh yeah, you went through that process, our relationship
Yeah.
check-in. So we do relationship check-ins while being apart as well. Before we are apart, we'll set our desires for how we want to stay connected, and then just speaking into any insecurities that are coming up and what other desires on the other side of that. So that's what has been so helpful for us.
That's crazy. Was that first one the
That
hardest?
was
So
the
was there any
first
other
one.
triggers? Was there any other triggers that have come up recently? Like, well, not recently, but like since you've had that conversation, or has it all been pretty good?
After that, it's been all really, really good. The first one, it was a little bit, it wasn't challenging. It was just like, okay, I don't want to share this, but that's why I'm here. I want intimacy, not just a good relationship. I want to have like heartfelt connection. So these are all the insecurities that are coming up.
It's so crazy, right? Because before, like, I don't know if you feel this way, but I don't know if it's a guy or like a girl thing, but as a guy, before I have to admit those things and speak them out loud, I feel sick in my
Yes.
stomach. It's like this dark, black, brown, muddy colorless in me. And I'm like, ugh, I do not want to say this. And you're like, I'm insecure that you might leave me with someone else or something. Oh, fuck. Like,
Yes.
and saying
Yes.
that's so hectic. I don't know.
Yes.
Do you feel the same? Have you experienced that? Or?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's part of the strong one that I was mentioning, like just not wanting to have people support me. And it also does make sense for a lot of men, especially because men, there is an expectancy, there is expectation to be the strong one, to be the one that holds the relationship down and the family down. And at the same time, from being with coaching so many women, a lot of women want their man to be more vulnerable and more transparent under certain during certain contexts. Like if there is a spider on the wall, some men for sure might have some spider trauma, but if there's a spider on the wall and then the man runs away, or any little insect or bug or anything that where the man just doesn't run, any situation where the man just runs rather than like protecting and being strong in that situation, then the woman can feel a lack of attraction for that. But in a certain context like this, where a woman wants to feel the man's heart, then that can be so attractive in a different way. Not where she wants to have sex straight away. Maybe she does, but it's so attractive because there's a level of like heart in that. And from, coaching so many women, that's something that I commonly hear from them.
Yeah, it's so cool. And I think that gives like men permission as well. Because what I believe is like there's true strength and vulnerability. But
Yes.
with vulnerability is it takes so much courage. Like you have to
Yes.
have so many fucking balls to be able to go up there and be like, yo, I am feeling this. And it is
Yes.
difficult as hell for me. And it makes me emotional as hell. Cause I don't know. I'm like other guys. I put myself in a position where like I do think that like my emotional intelligence over the past like 10 years has really skyrocketed. However, it's still hard. Like it's
Mm,
so hard every single time. You've got to be like, oh, I got to say this or like put this in here, or
yes.
I got to get vulnerable. It's like, oh shit. Sometimes it's like, here
Yes.
we go, like holy, but other times it's like, oh, this is such a struggle. And yeah, I think it's like that is some of the things that I most respect about people is when they literally have like the courage and the like the
Mm,
heart to actually speak like that. Cause I know that's the hardest. That's harder than
absolutely.
any workout I could plan for someone.
Yes.
That's harder than like any sort of like out of like there's so many awesome challenges you can do, but I find that one to someone who you love of like
Yes.
admitting that is the hardest for sure.
Yeah, and I'll speak on that in a different way, in a different perspective as well. Like one of the things that I like to break down for men that I coach is like different pillars of masculinity, right? And one of those things that you just touched on, which is courage. And the way that you can measure courage is by looking at the risk of moving into something, right? So your level of courage can be measured by the risk that you're going up against. So, for example, if there is Goliath that you're about to fight, right? Metaphorically, there's
I'm
Goliath,
David and there's
and
Goliath right there. Bring it on.
yeah, right there we go, right. So there's Goliath over here, and you're David. Well, the reason why that's the David facing Goliath is such a courageous him stepping into his courage is because the risk is so damn big, right? Does that make sense?
Oh yeah.
But if Goliath is very very small and very very weak, well, it's not him being courageous at all. And for a man to be able to open up in that setting is because on the other side of him being transparent, there is the illusion, or for sometimes the reality of a loss of connection. So by me opening up in this way, you can either love me even deeper, or there's the illusion, there's a story, there's the assumption that if I open up in this way, then you're not going to love me to the level of depth because you know what's going on in here and what's going on in here and all of the past things that have created all of this. So there's such a level of courage for men to be able to open up in that way because they are facing metaphorically Goliath in that setting.
So true. I feel that that's
Yeah.
like the one of the biggest Goliaths. I don't know for me specifically. It's getting like,
Yes,
um,
every man has their own version of that, their own version of Goliath.
yeah, so true. I actually have a question here. This is actually for one of my clients. I can't wait to send him this. But he
Yeah.
was just speaking to me like recently. Asked like his opinion is like what I don't know how to like really define masculinity and
Mm,
slot myself into it so that I have something to model. Because he's like, Dad wasn't there. Like, you know what I mean? Or Dad was there, but he wasn't a good role model for it. Like he just
mm,
didn't know how. Like all forgiven for him, but he just didn't know how. So he's like, I'm trying to
yes.
like really slot myself in to become like have the words and be articulate with
Mm,
how I can start showing up like in my masculinity. So I'd love to ask your thoughts, like how someone could do that.
love that. So I'm going to borrow. This isn't my definition or my answer to this. This is from because there was a time in my life where I was really wondering the same thing. And there's someone who I love and respect so much. His name's Jason Wilson. Do you know who that is?
I do not. Should I definitely
Okay.
be following this? Yeah.
Highly recommend it. But one of the things that he says, like someone asking that same question, he's like, "So what does it mean to be a man? Or what does it mean to be a masculine man?" And then his answer was, "You can't define it." And the reason why is because the very second that you define what a man is or what masculinity is, then you create a box. Now you're boxed in. And I love that because my definition of masculinity and being a man is that there are so many different flavors of what a man is, with so many different flavors of masculinity. And there are certain pillars that I like to break down that give someone like a compass, a goalpost to work towards. One of those things, as I mentioned, is someone who is courageous. That is what in my brain is a pillar of what it means to embody masculinity. So there's courage. I won't break down all of them, but another one as well is confidence. And confidence, and by the way, courage isn't always you. And speaking about confidence, it's not always about like never not feeling fear. It's a cliche quote. It's about feeling the fear and then doing it anyways, right? But it's going up against a certain level of risk. And then the second thing is confidence. But confidence isn't, there's false confidence, which is a compensation pattern, which is like, I'm all good. I've got it all together. I am strong and I am confident. And at the same time, there are certain people that can just look straight through them and be like, nope, that is just an adaptation. It's a compensation because you feel so, you don't feel confident. You feel so powerless that it's just a compensation pattern, right? So I believe that true confidence is leaning into that courage. So that very second that you lean in and you open up your heart to your woman, or you share what's actually going on, it's just being confident that no matter what, you're going to be okay. So I can step into something, I can try something, I can go for that goal, I can open up my heart. And if the worst case scenario happens, I'm going to be okay. So I'll leave you with that. And at the same time, I don't believe in like defining this is what masculinity or being a man actually is, because it creates a box.
Yeah, I love that so much. And then it's like as just like a back into that for like women as well, like a
Yes.
twist, a bit of a twist to the question in terms of femininity,
Mm,
would be how to use it
yes.
to charge up your man.
Mm, love that.
Because
Yes.
yeah, I'm just gonna like take notes right here and just give it to Chloe. No, sorry,
Yes.
Chloe.
Yeah.
But no, I would really love to know, and I think some of the listeners would like to know as well. And for the guys who are listening, don't write this down and tell your partner just to do this. Don't be like,
Yeah.
hey, do this, please.
Yes.
This is, I
Yes.
think, just like real good learning.
Well, let me ask you a question to that question, which is like, uh, what is it that your part, that part of your masculine is desiring to be charged up from the feminine? In what way?
I'd say like support and energy.
There we go. Right.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So another word for this is, yeah, you said the key word that is commonly comes up for men that I work with that they want from their woman or just the feminine. And if I ask a woman, like, what do you want? Someone to protect and provide. They don't say those exact words, but it's normally different subcategories that leads into someone to protect me, someone to provide for me, someone to take care of me, right? If I ask men the same thing, it's normally the same thing. I just want her to just like really love me for where I'm at and to make my life easier. Nurturing, support. I really want someone to just like be there for me and be my biggest cheerleader. Nurture,
Yeah.
support. I really want someone to just like cook my meals and I come home and everything's taken care of. The room, the house is all clean. And I just feel like I can just come home and I can just be in my kingdom. Nurture, support. So it's normally that thread. So it's for women who are listening, it's looking at, okay, for a man, for a masculine man, most commonly they want to be nurtured and support, and then looking at in what way does your man specifically want that, because it's the same thing with a love, like love languages, right? You're aware of like the love languages.
Oh yeah, I love languages all over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if someone has words of affirmation as their number one love language, that's great to know, and at the same time it's looking even deeper and asking them, okay, but how in this area, words of affirmation, does it spark so much love for you? It's when I receive compliments. What type of compliments? When you give me, when you let me know that I love you. Okay. How often? Every day. How often though? You know, in the morning, before you leave for work, when you come home from work, and then at the end of the night. So now we're getting even more specific rather than just saying, yeah, my partner's love language is words of affirmation. It's like getting so into the details that will help you have a little cheat book about how to have them feel so loved. Same thing, you can get a little cheat book about how to have your partner feel so charged up in your words, like from your feminine energy. So nurture and support. What would have you feel more nurtured? What would have you feel more supported? And then they will have a cheat book by you giving them the specific answers around that.
Do you see like some of the clients and stuff that you work with, like within their relationships, ones like truly try and practice this work and they succeed in all the things that they're doing and just watch their relationships turn into like complete powerhouses of just like,
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And there are some people that don't. You know, there are some people that do this and then they realize on the other side of that that you know what, it has just been because there's a lack of compatibility. So there's compatibility and then there's polarity. Polarity, you can think about it as chemistry or passion. And then a lot of the time, they think that they're trying to fix the problem by looking at the polarity, but really it's just been because there's been a lack of compatibility, whether it be a certain stage of life that someone is in, different values, different vision for their life, different different lifestyles as well. So all of these different things that they were trying to fix through having more polarity, more passion, and at the same time, it's just not a great fit. So
Ah,
there's definitely people and couples that just have so much more love and passion. But then some couples, the reality is that it doesn't continue, and that's okay as well.
yeah. I'd love to know, just like in your perspective, just like diving a little bit deeper, just knowing
Yes.
like what are the signs for non-compatibility?
Yeah.
Permission to go brutal if you want on this.
Yes.
And people are like, holy.
Yeah. Well, I'll provide a visual for people as well before I break down a little bit like a checklist that I like to go through with clients one on one or in groups. So I like to give the example that, okay, let's, so this right now, for those who are just listening, right now I'm wearing a jumper, as we call it in Australia, or a sweater or a hoodie. And if right now I'm a large, but if this was extra, extra small, let me ask you, Corey, could I still wear this?
Hell no.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people say, but it's a trick question. I'll just set you up here. The truthful answer, right, is I could wear it.
Yeah, just
It
be
would
silly.
just be very, it would just, it'd be silly and it would be very uncomfortable,
Mm.
right? So I then bring that to in people who are in the group and I say, like, so people always ask me, like, if you're not compatible, can you still be in a relationship? Absolutely. It's probably going to be very uncomfortable compared to wearing a hoodie that is a great fit. It's, it fits good, right? The so I like to just share that the undertone of a relationship gets to be ease and grace. It doesn't mean that it's not going to have challenges. Kelly and I, we have challenges. Every couple that I've ever worked with who have been in a long-term relationship are going to have their challenges. A lot of people are just putting on the pedestal the conscious relationship, calling in your king, calling in your queen, and just having this lovey-dovey relationship. But then being in a relationship is a completely different thing. There's a lot of work that's required. There's work to get into a relationship to be ready. And that's not where it finishes. Once you're in a relationship, it's like quadruple the amount of work on yourself and in the
Yeah.
relationship to be able to maintain it and have it thrive, right?
Yeah.
You don't arrive, right? So
Yeah.
now in that there is signs for a lack of compatibility. One of those things can be if you want different things in life. And sometimes it can change, right? But for example, long-term vision, do we both want kids? If I want kids and then Kelly doesn't, then that's going to be a bit of a challenge here. And we've had friends and not clients yet, but we've had friends, a lot of friends who have decided to not continue their relationship because they just decided, hey, we are so in love and this is so hard to do. And we just want completely different things. I want a family, you don't. And we can end this relationship in love, but not from a place of like wanting to fight each other, right? So that's one thing. The second thing to look for is a stage of life that someone is in. So that can be like if someone is much older or someone is much younger, that can bring, doesn't mean that it's not going to work. It just means that there might be some things that are not in alignment. If someone is in a different stage of life, it could be like, okay, we just get to be really patient in this relationship. So if I'm 20 years old and I'm dating a woman who is like 35 and she wants to, maybe not 35, like she's 30 and she really wants kids and she really wants to do this and she's just trying to hurry up and have a kid because I'm reaching that stage of where I'm not going to be able to have kids, then that's going to be a little bit challenging if I'm wanting to have kids at like 27 or 29, right?
Yeah.
So that's the second thing.
And that happened to me when I was 27 at 27. So I can relate to that.
You were dating a woman that was older?
She was 27 as well.
Okay.
But probably
Yeah.
like two, I think she's like a couple months. Yeah, she was a couple months older. And
Me too.
yeah, at the
Yeah.
time, she was just like, look, I want family, kids, all that stuff. And I'm like, hey, look, I've just started my podcast and I've just started my business.
Yes.
Hell no, not feeling
Yes.
safe, not safe at all.
Yes. Yes.
So
There we go.
to
Being
say,
in that position as well.
man,
Yeah.
come on.
And the last few I'll just touch on is like lifestyle. So if I am drinking and partying every single weekend, nothing wrong with that. But if my partner doesn't like that at all, then it's going to create some resistance in the relationship long term and short term. um, if there isn't a complete acknowledgement, it's like, hey, we have some things that aren't in alignment in terms of our lifestyle, and I don't know if this is going to work long term for us, right? And then the last thing is values, like things that we value. Under this category, I like to just bring in religion because some people who listen, they might be really religious. And for some people, it might be a thing for them that it's a must for them to be in a relationship with someone who is the same religion. Not always, but for some people, it's really, really important. But then underneath that, it's like health and personal growth. That's a big thing. Like what you were mentioning before, like I'm outgrowing my partner. Well, that can be prevented if you're single and you're wanting a partner who is also into personal growth, because then it's just like you're growing together constantly. You don't have to have the conversation around like, I just have to get my person to read more books or get into personal development. You're already in alignment in terms of values. So those are some things.
Oh man, there was so much I just resonated with there. Like it was so hard. I was like, don't want to resonate with all of this. So yeah, 100% you get it. And like, yeah, I just want to speak on just real quickly, just like in my own relationship, for example, like the whole challenges and grace thing. Like, oh man, we had some of the biggest challenges, like crazy amount of challenges. But I can speak on behalf of the relationships that I've had beforehand because I've had some real serious relationships. As mentioned, one was like, baby, house and all the things,
Yes.
and she was great. We just weren't going in the same directions. But I remember like there wasn't ease and grace behind that for a year.
Mm,
You know what I mean? And
mm-hmm.
in this relationship that we've got now, so dedicated to personal growth, so many challenges. But there is that tone of ease and grace, like the general, like 70%, 7 to 75% of the whole thing is just like ease and grace. And
There we
it's
go.
like, you know, you have those moments where you're like, is it this easy and this good? And then you're like,
Yes.
yes. And then on the weekend, something happens. You're like, oh, maybe not. But then it goes back
Yes.
to, oh, here we go. Like it's back to ease and grace. So I just wanted to point that out there. I was like, yeah, it's legit.
Yes, there we go. It's about like, yeah, zoning out to the bigger picture and being like, okay, maybe right now and during this phase of like what we're going through right now, it makes sense that it doesn't feel easy and graceful because we're going through some challenges. But if we just map it out and expand it, what has been the common thread in this relationship? Because there are absolutely going to be seasons, just like there's seasons in Australia or seasons wherever it is that you're listening from. Like there's seasons in life, there's also seasons in a relationship. So just knowing that maybe you're just in a winter, maybe that's it, right? And what's coming afterwards is going to be spring, it's going to be summer, but know that there's cycles in a relationship, that there are things that are going to happen, and it's one of the best opportunities to create deeper levels of intimacy in that time frame, right? So
Have
that's a
you done
great
that?
metaphor.
Have you done that in like a winter and created more intimacy? Because I'd love to hear a story
Absolutely.
if you're
Yeah.
open
So
to
not
share.
so much with us, but there was a time in our relationship last year, where we love animals. Like part of the way that we came together actually was we're both vegan, right? So we love animals. We have 4 cats. We have 4 cats that come every single day. We have like 8 to 10 cats because we have 4 cats that live with us, 4 cats that 5 to 6 cats that come out every single day, and we like feed them and we take care of them like stray cats. So we just love animals. And we had one of our cats last year who passed away. And we both went through some like deep levels of grief in the relationship. And we were just there for each other. It was like weirdly one of the most elevated forms of intimacy that was created during that time, because we were both like crying in each other's arms, and we were both just like looking at videos of her and just like crying and crying and crying and crying and crying. So that was one example where it wasn't us fighting, but there was like something that was happening that brought us closer. And there's been little like weekends of winter, right, where we both had a fight, and not during the fight, but after the fight, it was just like both just laughing at ourselves and being like, my ego wanted to be right so much when you were sharing this. And then when you said this thing, and I was like like one of my weapons to like get back at you was like to bring up this thing. And then and we just both laugh at it on the other side of it. And then after that, we can just like laugh and just be even more connected, have amazing sex. And then, yeah. So that's another example of that.
Oh man, I love that
Yes.
so much. We're sort of coming to the end of it now, so I just want to ask you a question that I like to give to all people that come on, all our guests. It's just like, what
Mm,
is one thing that you'd like to challenge the listeners to do if they could do like today, tomorrow, this week, in regards to everything that we've talked about the
mm.
finance, so much relationship stuff, masculinity, femininity. what is one challenge or something that you'd like to offer to the audience for them to do? They could
Mm,
just try.
love that. One thing that I would say, based on the theme of this podcast here, is ask yourself, what is one specific thing that I could do to embody even more of my wild man or my wild woman? Whether that be, hey, I'm going to set a boundary and let that person know who is constantly crossing my boundary, hey, I'm not okay with you doing this. And I would prefer that you do this. Or maybe it's your wild man is just, I don't know what it's going to look like for you or your wild woman, but find out something specific. Like get some teeth in it as well. And what I mean by that is don't just say, like, I'm going to dance more, but like get specific. I'm going to put music on tonight at 6 p.m. this song, and for 20 minutes, I'm just going to unleash, or I'm going to hire a personal trainer, I'm going to hire a boxing coach, or I'm going to start jujitsu, or I'm going to do like something specific that can help you to tap into the aspects of that wild man or wild woman archetype that you've denied, suppressed, or judged.
Damn, that's good. Ah, I love it. Well, thank you, Matt, so much for coming on. Where can people find you, reach out to you,
Yeah.
all the good
You can just go to mattkarma.com. My last name is spelled Cama, two T's in my first name, Matt. And yeah, you can just check me out there pretty much on every social media platform as well. You'll find me on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. It's all there. And any other platform that is probably going to come out in the future, you'll see me there. So just type in that name, and then you'll see me there.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much. And for everyone listening, everything's linked down below. So thanks, man, for coming on to the show.
Thanks for having me.